Mufasa the Lion King, directed by Barry Jenkins and starring Aaron Pierre as Mufasa, tells a prequel story to the live-action 2019 Lion King movie about Mufasa, an orphan who meets a sympathetic tiger named Taka. This film looks genuinely horrible, I can't lie. Before I get into that, I'll talk about the source material I've seen. I haven't watched anything from Barry Jenkins, but I have always wanted to watch Moonlight, so maybe sometime. He's like the only chance this film has at being good. I also haven't seen anything from Aaron Pierre, but he was in Old. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a very good sign. The original Lion King is a great film, I think we can all agree on that. It's a great story about life, along with a fantastic villain and a great score. It's a solid 8 for me. I really don't have to elaborate on this one, you already know how good it is. I've already seen The Lion King several times before this video, but I had actually never seen the 2019 remake. I have heard nothing but terrible things about it, so I checked it out with an open mind, and yeah, it sucks. This feels like the worst corporate garbage ever. The visuals are technically impressive, but it's one of the most emotionless, sloppy films I've ever seen. It's genuinely horrible, so it's like a solid 2 out of 10. Alright, so that out of the way, I'm gonna talk about my thoughts on the trailer. I mean, I guess it's an original story instead of the 2019 film that just stole from the original. That's a double-edged sword though. For one, I mean, it has the chance to be original, but it might have a garbage story with no emotion whatsoever, which would probably be even worse than the original. The facial expressions still look terrible, but it's an improvement over the 2019 one, so I guess. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this film looks absolutely horrible, but hey, I've heard that Barry Jenkins has made good films, so yeah, I'm gonna go watch the movie now. I'll go in with an open mind, so who knows, maybe it'll be good, we'll see. I saw the movie. It was bad, but weirdly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Like, it's still bad, but there were actually a lot of good elements. Like, of course, the bad stuff was there, as I'll get into, obviously, but, some of it was actually pretty good, but overall, the whole experience, yeah, it wasn't that good. But, I genuinely went into this thinking it was going to be, like, one of the worst films of the year, and it was only just bad. So that's actually, like, a good thing. It's a good thing, actually. So, yeah, on to my actual full review. Can you feel the light? To start off, characters. I don't love all the characters in this film, but honestly, all of the main characters in this movie were pretty good. I mean, obviously, they're pre-existing characters, so it's not that hard to write them, but it's all new dialogue, and since this is a prequel story, they're able to make these characters feel less experienced, like they're not competent or legends at this point, so it gives a very different vibe to all of them. For one, I think this movie makes Sarabi a lot more interesting. They do new interesting stuff with her. She also has a nice introduction to the story since she comes into it much later. Rafiki is probably my favorite character in this movie. He's pretty much the same as his original version, and it's nice seeing more of him since the original Lion King and the remake really didn't have a lot of him. It's kinda cool seeing his backstory, I can't lie. Lastly, I really didn't care about him for a while, but frankly, Mufasa is pretty good in this. He isn't the most interesting character, but they managed to make him really likable, and he grew on me much more as the film went on. I also think Taka has a decent character arc, and I'm gonna spoil this because it's not a spoiler at all. They literally call it out in the movie, but yes, Taka is in fact Scar, and who could have guessed? I think his character arc is actually kinda decent. They take an interesting direction with Taka's dad being a primary reason for his fall, which is the opposite of the original where Mufasa was the main reason for Simba taking the throne back. At the start, I thought this film builds up these elements pretty well. That being said, his actual full turn to evil is pretty bad, but I won't get into that. They had something going here. We could have gotten something good out of these ideas. That being said, I like the conclusion to his arc. He's not fully evil yet, at least from Mufasa's perspective, and it makes the previous films make a lot more sense. The previous film being the 2019 version. The original Scar is like perfect. He doesn't need this backstory at all, but to be fair, this backstory doesn't ruin anything with his character, besides his motivation for turning evil, which again, I won't get into. Anyways, yeah, I think the way they leave Scar off at the end of this film is pretty good. He's alright in my opinion, very, very messy at points at his arc, as we'll see later, but yeah, there are some interesting, good stuff here. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, for the first half of this film, I really hated it, and we're about to get into that soon, so I'm gonna be a lot more negative later on, but I gotta establish the main reason why I came out of this movie not really hating it, despite all the bad stuff. Once they get to the mountains, which is like the last hour of the film, the movie is pretty good, honestly. It looks visually good, the characters all have a decent dynamic together, it's all just pretty solid. I really enjoyed this film during this last hour. As much as I disliked the film at the start, I was honestly never bored during the movie, which is absolutely something that doesn't apply to the 2019 live action remake. It also flows pretty well, and the music at this point in the movie is pretty decent. This is probably because of the directing. I don't know, he does a really good job directing this specific part of the film. Everything flows really really nicely. There's also a music sequence in this mountain section of the film, and it is easily the best part of the entire movie. Not gonna spoil it, but it was actually pretty good and visually pretty, which is something I can't say about the rest of the music in this movie. Yeah, it's actually pretty good and a major factor for this film not being that bad. Okay, that being said, I'm actually gonna move on to the bad stuff now. Okay, I'm gonna start off with smaller issues I have before I get into the major issues, but there are some like really bad callbacks in this film. Honestly, the film holds itself back a lot of the time with its references, but there are still some, and they really do suck when they show up. The opening sucks. They legit recreate the opening of The Lion King again. They do restrain themselves and make it a lot less grand, which is good, but in execution it's super lame because it's just significantly lamer to the original. Plus, in the original Lion King, the opening is so intense and grand because of the birth of Simba. It's literally a part of the circle of life. Everything perfectly fits the grand tone. In this movie, everyone gathers for Simba just to give a speech. Like, why? It's just a lame attempt at recreating the original movie and it's completely pointless. Lastly, they recreate the Long Live the King scene like a lot of times, but Scar does it so many times that it kind of defeats the original. Like in the original movie, it was meant to be a betrayal kill, like Mufasa didn't see it coming. But in this movie, Scar does the same move on Mufasa several times, and it's just like, how would Mufasa fall for the same trick multiple times like 20 years later in the actual first film? The reference kind of ruins the original a bit, honestly. Okay, so I think this film does all the original characters pretty well. They either are in character or are allowed to feel different since it's characters from the past, making it excusable for them to be different. This really does not apply to Timon and Pumbaa though. They suck in this movie so bad. They're not funny in the slightest, they're just extremely annoying and drag every scene they're in. They do not have the same energy at all as the original movie, they're just so annoying. They're definitely bad in the 2019 movie, but in that movie they were just reading good pre-existing lines from the first. Very poorly delivered obviously and without any charm, but it was still good dialogue. Here, none of the dialogue is ever funny or good, and the voice acting hasn't gotten much better from the first. It's still terrible. This movie also features a present-day story after the original movie, and it's also not very good. This film's pacing at the start is pretty terrible, the opening sucks as I said before, and the transition to the actual film is pretty bad. I mean, this entire film is technically just Rafiki telling a story during a storm, which would be fine, but it leads to this film not only feeling very generic, but it also makes the film cut back to the present several times during this movie, and pretty much all these scenes are completely pointless. It's the same thing every single time. Simba's kid wants Simba to come home, and Pumbaa and Timon say something very funny, and then it cuts back. This happens so many times, and it pretty much is the same thing every single time, rinse and repeat. Yeah, the present day stuff sucks. It really isn't in the film that much, so you can kind of ignore it, and as the film goes on, they cut back to it less and less, which leads to that last hour of the film not being ruined. So I guess it's not the biggest deal, but when the present day story is on screen, it is not good, it is bad. Lastly, my biggest issue with this film is easily its music. I'll cover them all since they're pretty much all bad except for that one song on the mountain. Again, I think that one song is pretty good. Okay, so the opening music number just feels lame. Like, there's nothing good here, at least it's kind of visually creative, but the need to make everything feel realistic really drags it down a lot. Next, there's a song where a younger Scar sings about wanting to be king. Wanting to have a brother, sorry. Yeah, it sucks. It's so generic and boring. The lyrics are so basic and simple. The vocals are also trash. Everything about this song is straight up terrible. This song is so lazy, they literally repeat "I always wanted a brother" like 10 times. It's so lazy, I can't do it. Hey, if you want, I'm pretty sure the songs are already on YouTube, so check it out if you want. And it only goes down from here. The villain song. I think this is the worst point in the entire movie. The villain says beforehand there will be one ruler, one Lion King. Like, holy, this is really bad, and it just gets worse. Okay, I'm gonna read some lines of genius just off script, just for the sake of it. You took my son, I hope you can run, cause I'm gonna be the last thing you see before you go bye-bye. What? Yeah. The circle of life is a lie, a pretty way to say there are predators and prey. Like, what is this line? I get what he's saying, but like, I don't get into it that much, but the villain is so lame. Like, what is his deal with the circle? Does he not believe in it? I don't get it. This song is so bad. And then there's like, I run my pride, you run and hide, cause like he's different from them. Bye for vengeance is mine. And then like the chorus here is, oh, if I'm the last of my line, I must be strong. Oh, bye. Yeah, and the final song is, I'll make you go bye, so long, bye. This entire villain song is like 50 words, and the chorus is just him saying bye bye over and over again. It's yeah. Additionally, the voice is annoying. At least the rest of these songs have decent instruments. This one is so boring and obnoxious. I hate to do this, but like, compare this to Be Prepared. What is this? It's so generic and terrible. Plus, the general setting of the song is so lame. Like, he's walking around a tree the entire time. The rest of the songs are fine, I guess. There's a travel song that I hated for the first minute because the lyrics were so generic and bad. But as it went on, they started combining the other songs, so it kind of turned out to be okay. And as I said, the mountain song is pretty good, and I think that's all the songs. Yeah, overall, not good. The second and third song of this movie are genuinely like 1 out of 10 material. Listen to it yourself, and you'll probably see what I mean. Yeah, I think I'm done talking about this movie. I don't want to do this anymore. And overall, I mean, it's bad. Probably a bigger point about this movie is that it has no reason to exist, but the movie is like kind of fun when you don't think about it too much. I did this review off very negative, but that's the opposite of my viewing experience. I started off absolutely hating it, and as it went on, it slowly grew on me more. My third aspect, I guess, would just be the consistency in the last hour, and my least favorite aspect is the music. It's actually god-awful. I don't care if there's one good track, everything else sucks. Yeah, so overall, Mufasa the Lion King is a solid 4 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and this is an epic outro.